Okay, so I'm doing a red tag starting off with a size 14 egg hook. And you can use any sort of dry fly hook, and I've got 6 odd black thread. I'm just starting off at the thread base, leaving a little bit of space behind the eye to eventually create the head, and winding the thread right down into the base of the hook. Now I'm taking rayon floss here, but you can use any sort of material. Traditionally used wool, but I find that sort of more modern synthetics shed border a little bit better. And all I'm doing is folding that in half again and again, and then cutting it. Now lash that to the hook, tying it quite far up to maintain the body shape to create a bit of a taper, and tying it well down into the base of the hook. So you can cut it off there, or you can leave it for later. Now I've just got a couple of peacock curls, 3 peacock curls. I'm going to trim the butt so they're all the same length. And I'm going to tie those in well up into the body once again, maintaining that taper. And you start to just do touching turns to create a body. Now you can use more here, and you can even twist them up to create a really big thick body, but I find the sort of slimmer body takes gink a little bit better, and sort of can sit below the surface of the film as well if you need it to, so you can sort of sink it. And then just cut the excess off. So I've got a dark sort of chestnut coloured hackle here. I'm just going to tie that in with the shiny side facing forward and work my thread up towards the eye of the hook. And you're doing touching turns, creating quite a bulky, tight hackle up towards the eye of the hook. Capture that off with your thread. And then you can preen everything backwards and just do a couple of wraps in front just to capture it. Trim off the excess hackle. And then whip finish to create a nice little black head there. And you can use head cement to make it glossy and a little bit more durable. And then here's where I choose to trim the tail, sort of gauge it. Approximately the gape of the hook makes for a good tail on a red tag. Now for this version, I'm going to use claret instead of red for the tag, just showing one of the variations you can do. I'm also going to do the parapost technique. So just trim all those ends to make it nice and even. And that's claret rayon thread there. And you're just going to capture it, tie it well up into towards the eye of the hook, and then go well down into the bend of the hook. And I've got some poly yarn here, but you can use almost any sort of posting material that you want. You can use EP fibres, trigger point fibres, any of those sorts of materials. And I've got a small clump there. Give it a bit of a twist to align everything. I tie it in sort of 2/3 of the way back towards the tail that we've created there. I'm just wrapping to capture all those fibres. This is almost the same sort of proportions as creating a wing case on a nymph or whatever. And I'm just going to use the thread to post up that, so it's just touching turns, wrapping up a little bit of the poly yarn, just to create sort of a bit of more sturdy of a base to begin the hackle on. Then winding back down towards the hook. Now you work your thread back down towards the tail. Just got one errant fibre to trim out there, and you're going to get some peacock curl again. And I've just got a couple here. Trim the ends so they're the same length. I'm going to tie those in. Next I'm getting that same coachman hackle, and I'm removing some of the fibres down the bottom just to expose the bare stem to make it easy to tie in. And then tying that in, and then going to lash it up along the post. So tie it in on the shank of the hook first, and then work it up the post that you've created. And just pulling that material out of the way with each wrap, kind of a little bit repetitive, but it's the way you've got to do it. And then we're going to do touching turns with the peacock hackle right up towards the front, just keeping all that material out of the way. It can be a little bit fiddly. And then once you get in front, a few turns, and I'm reverting to a technique here where you push it down and then you grab it with your left hand, squashing the fibres against the shank of the hook. And once you get right up, a couple of sort of a hook eye behind the hook eye, you'll tie that off, trim off the excess, and this is where the para posting actually begins, so just make sure your material's all clear. Now I'm holding the post with 2 fingers because I don't have a gallows tool, and I'm using my second and third fingers of my right hand to catch that hackle and pass it back to my other hand. And it takes a little bit of practice, this technique, but you can eventually become quite adept with it with a bit of practice, and just keep wrapping that all the way around. This obviously uses up a lot of hackle, and when you feel like you've accumulated enough, you can capture both materials with a pinch wrap. And so I secure that. I'm going to pull the materials back towards the top on top of the hook there because they've sort of fallen off a bit, and then really tighten it down. Now pull your material right up nice and taut, trim off at an angle. And same with the poly yarn. And you're going to use your thread to sort of compress and capture any of those butts that are left. I'm just going to do a quick whip finish as like a save for the work so far. And now you start to just do a few extra wraps just to tidy up and clean up any of those butts of the poly yarn that are left behind. This also creates quite a nice little head on it. And then same thing as before, a couple turn whip finish. You can apply head cement obviously if you want. Trim your thread off, and then you can gauge the length of your tag and trim that off as well.